Welcome to the BLTB. I'm Dean,
Mohammed.
and we are ex-biomedical science students, and come on in, we'll give you a bit of introduction to our course.
So this is the ground level of the BLTB, and right now we'll have a walkthrough of one of the learning spaces that we have here in the BLTB.
Okay guys, so can you tell us about the course structure of the Biomed course here? What are some of the key areas of study that gets covered during your degree?
So the Monash Biomedical Science program has 4 units each semester. So 3 of those will be your core biomed subjects, which will range from a different myriad of biomedical disciplines. So you'll go through anatomy, biochemistry, molecular biology throughout your 3 years, and gradually in your 3rd year will change into capstone units. So this will be a combination of your previous 3 years, and you'll be using the knowledge you've learnt in more of a practical aspect. You'll be writing a systematic review and conducting a lot of projects in those 3 years.
Yeah, I think it's good to note that at least first year biomed feels like year 13 almost. So it kind of just follows on what would you think would be just 1 year above the level of chemistry, biology, or physics that you were studying. So you'll start off again with basic biochemistry, a little bit of physics. Luckily, it's the only time you really get into it. And then it builds upon those skills as well, getting into physiology, anatomy in the 2nd year, and as you said, it kind of crescendos into like a pathology pathway where we look at disease and treatment and use all the skills that we've picked up along the way as well. So that means in your last year you do have an opportunity to do more electives as well, and that's something that's very interesting about biomed, the fact that it's not, you can't necessarily major or minor, or you can, but if you were to do one major, that would take up every single elective that you have. So it's not something that people really do. They try and land boosters for electives or anything that people are interested in, because it is quite heavy, the content for the core units. And I would just say as well that whilst it is structured for 4 units per semester, I know a lot of students who've decided to underload and to overload as well, depending on life and circumstances. And it's actually a really useful tool, particularly making use of summer and winter units and so on. It just eases the burden later on.
So then you guys talked about core subjects and elective subjects. What are some of the core electives and elective subjects that are available?
Yeah, well, you touched on the core subjects already. So biochemistry again, physiology, molecular mechanisms of disease towards the end. You do bioinformatics, which is really cool. You do public health and preventative medicine, and the thing about biomed is because you cover so many different topics, like what's the expression, like jack of all trades, master of none, in a way. So that's definitely a feeling that you get when you're doing biomed, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, I've found. But it's important to know that not everything's for everyone. Like some people really hated public health, some people really hated bioinformatics, and you just got to understand that and just play to your strengths a little bit. But yeah, what electives did you do?
I took on more maths electives throughout my degree. I took 3 maths electives. I had a nutrition unit and a couple of pharmacology ones. The pharmacology ones were very interesting. They were a bit more slower paced, but slightly different to our core biomed subjects, would be more practical components.
I see.
Pharmacology was really, like a lot of people did it as well. The whole drug design pathway is something that will happen in your core units, and a lot of people tried to pick electives that would complement the core units. I did not do that. I did French because I studied it in school and I wanted to continue with it, And that was nice. I know a lot of people who did different languages or who did music electives and art electives, and like I think I'm quite amazed with the Biomed cohort. It's not really necessarily just science-minded people, and electives are a really powerful way to branch off into non-science things, which is very important, particularly for people who want to broaden their perspective.
Okay, so you guys mentioned WAM boosters in choosing electives. What is the WAM and what are WAM boosters?
So the WAM stands for weighted average mark, which is essentially your average mark across your 3 years at uni. The mark changes according to the difficulty of the units. So a second and third year unit is weighted more heavily than a first year unit, and accordingly that reflects on your average. There are certain units which students undertake that are easier for them, which we term as WAM boosters. They're usually first and second year units, which may be in art subjects, in the art faculty, or in other faculties which may have a low workload, may not even have an end of semester exam, and people undertake these to boost their WAMs up.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. A WAM booster, which is a very interesting concept, and it's kind of debated, is there such thing as a WAM booster? Because the truth is, if you don't put in the effort, it's like very demoralizing, right? Someone will say, oh, this is a WAM booster unit, you do it, and then you'll get a bad mark, and then you'll be like, am I that dumb? And it's not about being smart or dumb, it's just about your ability to put in work and to understand these concepts as well. But if people are interested, some units that I did, so I stopped with French after I realized this is not going anywhere. And so I decided, okay, I'll do a critical thinking summer unit as well. That was really interesting as well. And again, like, interest is very important for whatever you do, because it's a funny term. What it means, if you're interested, it doesn't mean that you're good at it. It means that you're more likely to put in the work needed to get it done as well. A lot of people do pharmacology as well, even though that doesn't really consider to be a WAM booster, but it is. People can often get good marks, as well as biomed electives that you can do over the winter. A really good one that you can do in third year is called Biomed. It's a little integrated unit where you get to do a research project as well. It's very intense, and you'll find that a lot of these WAM boosters over the summer and winter, they're very intense, but they're high yield, and they allow you to focus more on the core units, which takes a lot of work to get through as well. So.
Okay, so you guys mentioned overloading, underloading, and summer winter subjects. What does that necessarily sort of entail? What does that mean?
So you have really amazing people like Mohammed who went through the course and they did the 4 units, and then you have people like me who tried to jump around with the scheduling. So underloading is when you have 4 units. It's not really by units, it's about the credit points. So usually a unit is worth 6 credit points, but again, as we said, the capstone units, they're worth double, so 12 credit points, and they're double the work as well. So 24 in a semester is what you do. So people can underload by not doing a unit, or they can overload sometimes, not really at all with core units, but with electives. I think you have to speak to Monash Connect to do that. I wouldn't recommend it. But underloading is a really good tool as well. So of course that would mean that it would extend your degree, but it happens for all different types of circumstances that people can do. But also people can underload and still complete their degree on time if they do summer and winter units as well. And I have to say, I feel like summer and winter units are like a hidden tool, particularly in the arsenal of biomedical science students, because what you can often do is a 3-week intensive unit, and that takes up what would be a 12-week unit with SWOT, VAC, and exams. So it really takes off the burden that people feel as well. But I'm interested, why did you do, because people do and people don't. What was your thoughts?
So I just went with the conventional pathway. I was in 4 units a semester. I didn't find any units of interest that were available in summer and winter so that I could underload during the normal semesters. That's why I took the normal conventional pathway, and luckily I had a good work-life balance and school balance, and the workload wasn't too hard, so I was alright with just going 4 units each semester.
Okay, so can you guys tell me about the practical components of your course, like what sort of lab techniques that you were able to learn?
So during your first and second year units, the units may have a practical component which will be undertaken in the lab. So we undertook some organ baths for pharmacology, where we saw different muscles within animals contracting after adding certain pharmacological drugs. We had a diuresis practice as well for physiology, where we were looking at the osmolarity of other people's urine, which was quite interesting.
The other people. I'm pretty sure it was us.
Yeah. Know anything that day?
No, I just would say that like you start off less. That's not what you start off with. You start off with your light microscopy skills as well. So histology, looking at different stains. Again, looking at different organs, just trying to figure out where you are. What's a healthy cell? What's an unhealthy cell? And then we can unpack that later in microbiology. Why is it that way? And then it kind of builds up a little bit more as well. Another interesting, very practical thing that is included in the course is anatomy. So that's downstairs as well. And of course the work cadavers as well that you look at. And I think it's good that it's still available for us to do, particularly as biomedical science students. Whilst there isn't, we're not going to be dealing with patients after our degree. It is still important to understand anatomy very well, and that's in second year as well, and done quite respectfully. And then in third year, you kind of stop the practical side of things, and then we kind of work more on like a communication type, or working on more so on papers, and as you said before, doing systematic review and so on. But yeah, you develop your skills practically. We would say as a caveat, of course, we were in COVID, so a lot of the things were kind of skipped over, but I think they really do value practical skills as well.
Okay, guys, so can you tell us where are you primarily located? Where are we at the moment?
So we're currently in the BLTV. Most of the biomedical science students throughout their course will be having their core subjects in the BLTV and the LTV, which is the Learning and Teaching building across from the bus stop. Dean, do you have anything to add
Yeah, so I think for all core units that we've had, it's either been in this building, the Biomed Learning and Teaching building, or the LTB, the big brick and wooden room, again, close to the bus stop. For electives, it's fair game, you can have it anywhere as well. And then for lectures, they're a bit interesting. It depends if you go to your lectures in person or if they are recorded. We'll see what the faculty does in the future. But yeah, the important thing to notice is particularly early on in the semester when people are like, I'm in Biomed, or like I'm going to go to my classes. It does get quite busy as well, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. And it is just important to just to keep that in mind whenever you're walking around. But in terms of location as well, where people are located across Melbourne and Victoria coming to campus as well, that is a benefit for, I think, a lot of people, because I grew up in the southeast of Melbourne, so a lot of people in Biomed I kind of knew or live around the southeast. It's one of the only universities in the southeast particularly that offer this course as well. But then of course you have people like Mohammed who come from the west side as well, who travel here, and it is very interesting how you get people coming from all the way out there. So what are your thoughts? Why did you come here?
The main reason I came to this site was there was a toss between Melbourne Uni and Monash. The advantage of Monash was the fact that there was more spots to get into medicine, postgraduate.
We'll talk about that later. Okay. So then, guys, which campus would you be at Monash?
Clayton.
Clayton.
So that's where we're here right now. It's very nice. It feels like a city as well. You've got Monash. What's it called? The central, where Monash Connected is.
Campus Centre.
Campus Centre.
Yep.
So, which I think they're updating soon as well.
Lovely.
And yeah, there are nice facilities as well. You know, sports, music, whatever people are into as well. Again, it's huge. You can get lost in here as well. Of course, Monash does have campuses in Caulfield as well. And depending on electives, I know some people in Biomed who did arts electives that were either only taught in Caulfield, or perhaps they lived closer to Caulfield and they decided to do that as well. But yeah, you'll be based here in Clayton, and pretty nice.
And what are your contact hours like, say, per week?
I think we have less than 20 contact hours every week.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like compilation of different, including like lectures, your workshops, tutorials, and you'll be of course spending time at home going through certain coursework, doing your projects. But it is important to get on top of those at home, not to fall behind the week's work. Otherwise you'll have to cram it close to exam time, which a lot of us did, to be honest.
So yeah, contact hours, it's something that people definitely have to take into consideration as well, because let's face it, as uni students, we're not the most richest folk, so we do need to work, and of course we do need to have a social life, and increasingly important when looking for graduate opportunities as well, it's important that you do have some kind of volunteering experience or extracurricular activities that, you know, makes you're not your degree, and managing your time in Biomed effectively allows you to be able to do all the other things that make your life your life. So what I found later on in my degree is perhaps it wasn't very smart scheduling a class for, let's say, 1 p.m. in the middle of the day, because you can't really work in the morning and manage to make it to uni sometimes, and you know, if you're finishing class at 3 or so on, it kind of ruins your afternoon shift. So I started to do a lot of earlier classes from 8 a.m. so I could go off, but really it depends on people's workload, it depends on what they're doing as well, and it's not just work as well, it's extracurricular activities that people are involved in.
Okay, so I guess I'll ask a question that I personally was confused about, and I think a lot of people are, is what's the difference between Biomed and doing, you know, Bachelor of Science?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think, you know, a lot of people should look into it before they decide to go either way, in year 12 in particular. What I would say the main difference is between science and Biomed is in science, there is opportunity for a lot more flexibility in terms of the units that you're doing. Again, in Biomed, you have those core units that you have to do as well, and it limits your electives as well. But speaking with people who do science, they do have a lot of more freedom to lean into things that they like. So for example, in biomedical science, as I said, there's a lot of different things that you cover, from neuroscience, to microbiology. Well, you can really choose in a science degree to lean into some of that a little bit more. And I found that even doing an honours degree, there are people who do honours in their science degrees, they have a lot more clarity and a lot more knowledge in depth into a particular course. But I think it is interesting because in Biomed, obviously it has a lot more structure, and that can be of benefit to people as well.
A lot of people sort of enter biomedicine and science looking to potentially, go into medicine. What would be the main difference between the two degrees, if you have that goal in mind?
So the biomedical degree at Monash provides the most spots to get into the Monash the graduate medical program at Monash. So about 70% of the spots are reserved for biomedical graduates, and only about 30% is reserved for science, Bachelor of Science, and pharmacy students, which is of course an incentive for people to undertake the Bachelor of Biomedical program. Other than that, you can enter medicine as a graduate for other unis by doing the GAMSAT as well, and provided you have a good GPA from your undergraduate studies, that is also an option. So you're not limited to medicine only at Monash. You can go to other unis within Victoria and also interstate. There are options.
What makes Monash Biomed unique compared to Biomed at other unis?
So at the Monash Biomedical Science program, you can choose electives from science-related faculties. So compared to Melbourne Uni, where the breast subject cannot be from the same faculty, at Monash it can be. So within your biomedical degree, you can choose to do other biomedical disciplines as an elective, such as developmental biology and other units. On top of that, what makes the Monash program unique is that the Monash graduate medical program is only reserved for graduates from Monash courses. So people who graduate from Melbourne Uni or other unis are not eligible to apply for the graduate medical and medicine program here. Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, that's really interesting as well, and I think a big thing at Monash is research. So there are a lot of aligned institutions, like we're at the Heart and Diabetes Institute, as well, that you can work with when you're going through your degree at Monash as well. So there's a lot of opportunities there. I think first and foremost, why a lot of people go to Monash is, again, the location in the area. If you do live in the southeast, but again, there are people who travel. There are a lot of people who stay in accommodation here at Monash. Again, it's a really nice city environment that people have to live here as well, particularly for international students as well. But I would say that as people go through their degree and they make friends, it's a good opportunity for them to explore other forms of accommodation outside of Monash, probably a lot more cheaper, and you can be a roomie with your friends and so on. So there is a nice community around Monash as well. But of course there are other considerations. I think Melbourne University is quite interesting as well because it's closer to the city and those facilities for some people. But I think the Med is probably a major reason for a lot of people.
Thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed getting some insights from us, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Like and subscribe to the Reset.